Hello everyone, today we'll be discussing about formulas and functions, which is the most important topic. If you do not understand formulas and function, you cannot build dynamic reports, performing advanced analysis, or automating repetitive tasks such as macros, and optimizing the performance or debugging any calculation errors. Without mastering formulas and function, it is impossible for you to become an expert in Excel or a strong data analyst. Formulas are not just Excel topic, they are the backbone of the analytical thinking. And in most of the interview questions on Excel comes from this topic. They might be asking you about relative and absolute reference, and they might ask you about if function logic or lookup functions like VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. How do you handle error? How do you remove errors like NA values? And what is nested formula? Okay, and what are the calculation modes? So, and they might be asking you about these structured references in table. Okay, to answer all these questions, you need to understand this concept properly. So, without any further delay, let's get started. So now we'll discuss about working with formulas and functions. A formula always begin with an equal to sign and contain any of these elements. So first we'll discuss about constants. So constant mean hard-coded numbers can be used directly in the formula. For example, if you say equal to 5 plus 10, which gives 15. So that is constants. You can add or you can multiply anything. You'll be getting the results. So that is one way of using the formulas. Second one is operators. So you have the list of operators that you can see on the screen, and which includes addition, multiplication, subtraction, or you can see greater than, less than, or equal to. Okay, so all these things are called operators. So you can use them in your formulas. For example, equal to 50 plus 35. That means you are using a plus operator to get the results. Or else you can say equal to 10 greater than 5, which gives a result as true. Okay, so you're using an operator here. The next one is called cell reference. This includes any value that points back to a single cell or a range of cells. When you enter, suppose two numbers, 10 and 30. In J8, you entered 10, and in K8, you entered 30. So what you can do, you can write equal to J1 plus K8. That will give you a result 40. That means you're referencing J8 with a value 10 and K8 with a value 10, so that you got a result 40. That is called as cell references. The next one is text strings. For example, you wrote, for example, data in one column and analyst. You want to merge both of this. What you will do, you will just use cell reference. You will just use cell reference this, and you use a concatenation symbol, and you type here. So you get data analyst into one cell. Okay, when you want to merge any text, you will be using the concatenation. Okay, that is about text strings. Next is worksheet functions. So you have equal to, when you enter S, you want sum, you can do sum, and you have sum ifs, everything. So if you want to do average, for example, you have numbers from 10, 12, 13, 15. If you want to do average, normally what you have to do, you have to do it via this plus this plus this plus this divided by the number of operations are 4. You'll get average as 12.5. But you can use the worksheet functions average, and you can just use cell reference, so you get the same result. So in all these methods, you can use formulas and functions to get your result. Okay, next we'll discuss about understanding operator precedence in formulas. Okay, you'll be seeing the list of operators that you see. First one is exponentiation, second is multiplication, third division, addition, subtraction, concatenation, equal to, less than, greater than. So what does it mean? Whenever you are working by using operators, example, if you have 10, 20 and 30, right? So what happens here? When you use precedence, for example, equal to 10 into 20 square, exponentiation 2. So first, as per the precedence, it will take K12 into 2. This will take into the first priority, and then it will multiply, because the order of precedence takes place in Excel. Okay, so what is the value? Your value is 4000. How? 20 square is 400. 400 into 10 is 4000. Suppose in a similar manner, you can use this precedence, and that is how Excel understands them. Okay, but you have an option here to use parentheses. For example, if you are using equal to parenthesis of 10 into 20 bracket and use exponentiation with 2, it will give you a different result. It gave you 40,000. So what is that? 10 into 20 is 200. 200 square is 40,000. So that is how you need to understand the operators and their precedence in formulas. Okay, and example, if you have these three cells, 10, 20, you have 10, 20 and 30. Suppose you used formula and you wrote 10 minus equal to 20. It will show you typo error. That means Excel did not understand what you wrote, and it will ask you to accept this. Whenever you're working on Excel, whenever you find this kind of an error, that means the way you're using operators or constants or self-referential, that means there is some error which Excel did not understand. Okay, so that is why you will get this kind of an error. Okay, using functions in formulas. So how does function helps to do our task in an easier manner? The first one is functions makes formulas simpler. For example, if you have these numbers and you want to find average, normally what you'll do, you will just use parentheses, you will be adding all those numbers and trying to divide by the total number that will give you an average. Suppose if you want to take average of these 5 numbers, you divide with 5, you will get some 14.38. But with using functions, so you can directly do and you'll be getting the same answer. Okay, so that is how functions make formulas look simpler. Okay, and the second, with functions it can perform complex calculations. Okay, so suppose if you have these numbers and if you want to find the highest number, okay, so what you can use a function max, and you can just use the cell reference to get the maximum number. So what happens here, because right now you have only 10 numbers, but if you have a million rows, still this will make sure you can perform these complex calculations using functions in a simpler manner. Okay, and second one, functions save a lot of time. Okay, for example, you have suppose you have something called as data analyst. Okay, so by using data analyst, okay, suppose you have data analyst, you have data analyst. Suppose you want to see there is a lot of capital letters in the middle and you have some capital letters here as well. So what you can do with using a function proper, you can make sure into a proper format by just using a function, and you can do that to any number of rows, right? So that it saves a lot of time by using proper functions. Okay, and you can also use multiple functions, right? You can use minimum. If you want to find the minimum of these numbers, you will be getting the minimum number. So with functions you can do a lot of things in an easier manner. So that is the reason we need to learn functions. Okay, for example, using the if function, which is very important function for anybody who wants to learn Excel. Most of the interview questions will be asked on if function. For example, if you have 10,000 as sales, and for suppose if someone is doing a sale of 10,000, he'll be getting a commission of 5%. Commission is 5%, and if someone is doing sales more than 10,000, he will be getting a commission of 10%. Okay, so we can use if function. Okay, if function, and we can calculate. Suppose if someone has done sales of 8,000, okay, you can use less than here. Okay, suppose if someone is doing a sales of 8,000, he would only be getting 5%, but if someone is doing more than 10,000, he'll be getting a commission. So you can use if function. Okay, and this less than 10,000. Okay, if the sales is less than 10,000, give. Okay, so the solution would be he has to get 5%, right? This into 5%, or else you give this into 10%. So with a singular function, you will know how much commission he will be getting. So suppose I use this into 1.25, okay, and just dragged it. So with this, you will be able to tell what is the commission that they will get if they are doing sales. Okay, so if you see here, for 10,000, the commission is 10%. He is able to get 1,000 rupees. For 12,500, 10% commission, 1,250. By just using a function if, you able to calculate for the entire number of rows. Okay, so that is the importance of the functions. Suppose if the number is 8,000 and if you wrote into 0.8, okay, so suppose for 6,400 sales, you would only be getting commission of 320 because he would be only getting 5% commission. Okay, that is the if function. Okay, you should know how to use if function properly. Okay, yes. Next, here you need to understand 3 things. If is the function, anything inside the parentheses are called as arguments. So the first argument is a logical test. K9 less than 10,000, that's a logical test. If true, okay, if you can see here, if parenthesis logical test. This is your logical test. If the value is less than 10,000, the second one, value if true, then print K9 into 5% when the value is true. If not, the value is false, then print this. Anything under 10,000, it will give you 5% commission. Anything above 10,000 will give you 10% commission. That is how you use a if function. Okay. In the similar way, we have a lot of functions where we need to understand. Okay. Second, we will try to understand what is function arguments. Okay. So suppose when you use a function in an Excel, it always includes parentheses. For example, if I'm using the value 10,000, commission is 5. Okay. So suppose if I use if function and I'm using a logical test this less than 20,000, comma. If this value is less than 20,000, just print 10,000 into give me 5%, comma. If not, print 10,000 into 10%. Okay, so I just pressed enter. So here you see the first one is the logical test. Second one, if this value is true, print this, otherwise print this. Okay, so when you use a function in an Excel, it always includes the parenthesis, the opening bracket and the close bracket. The information inside the parenthesis is called arguments. Here we have 3 arguments. First argument is the logical test. Second value, what is the true, then print this number. And the second one, if it is false, print this number. Okay, so you got 10,000 is less than 20,000, then you're getting a 5% commission. That is your result. Okay, suppose you have, like suppose control C equal to this into 1.1 and just drag. Okay, suppose if you have these numbers, you have a total of 11 numbers. If you are using sum of from here to here, that means from K8 to K18, this is the argument because it is inside the parenthesis. Okay, now we will see, now we will look into what are the type of arguments. Okay, we'll see what are the type of arguments. Types of arguments. Okay, functions can have different types of arguments. Suppose for example, first we'll look into no argument. Okay, what is no argument? Inside the parenthesis, if nothing is there, suppose we use the function now, inside the parenthesis we don't have any arguments and we'll print it. So it will give you a date. This is in series, but if you just go into, just change it into a date format, it will say February 26th, 2026. That means whenever you don't have an argument, we have a no function. Okay, that you can see it in the formula bar. Okay, that is the first type of argument. We'll see the second type of argument. Okay, second type of argument is having one argument. Suppose if you use the square root of 10, in the parentheses you're using only one argument. Okay, so what is the square root of 10? It will give you a value. Example, square root of 81. It will give you a proper number. So the square root of 81 is 9. So when you're using one argument, you're getting an answer. For that, it is square root of you'll say 100. You'll get a number 10. Third one, with fixed number of arguments. With fixed number of arguments. Okay, so we already saw the fixed number of arguments equal to if we use a logical test. This number is greater than 12. Okay, comma true, comma false. Okay, so it is saying this number. Okay, this number K12 is greater than 12. 9 is greater than 12. No, it is false. So it is printing false. So here we have 3 arguments. K12 greater than 12. That is the first argument. Second one is true. That is second argument. Third false is the third argument. That is fixed number of arguments. And the fourth one, what we have? Fourth one we have indeterminate number of arguments. That means suppose you have a value 10. You have value 10, and you just copy. Or you can drag. You have like here, if you see, there are like 10 numbers. Okay, so what you can do, you can do sum to find the value in the parenthesis. Okay, you got 100. That means you can change the range size. This is only for 10 rows, but still you can do it for any number of rows. That is indeterminate number of arguments. Okay, and there are some functions, they have arguments but that are not required. Those are called as optional arguments, which we don't use much, but these are the type of arguments that we have. Okay, so Excel is flexible. Arguments can be self-reference. Suppose you can use sum of this to this, so you can use self-reference. So K10 to K19 are your arguments. Okay, and you can have literally one argument. Okay, which is square root of 100. Okay, that is literally one argument. And you can have text string. Okay, that means equal to text string. So for example, if you have name, whenever you are using proper function, whenever you are writing a text, right, it should be in inverted commas. Suppose I wrote data. Okay, So proper, what it will do, it will capitalize the initial letter, and the remaining will be the smaller letters. If you press enter, you will be getting data. That is called as a text string. Okay, text string. And then you can also have expressions. What do you mean by expression? Where you can use square root of 81 plus 19, and you will be getting the result. So expression means you can calculate inside the function. Okay, and another function is called nested function. What does this mean? Suppose if you have square root of sum of 10 plus 20, okay, or else square root of 10 plus 71. Okay, first what it will do, it will calculate the sum of 10 plus 71, which is 81, and square root of 81 is 9. So when you enter, you will be getting 9. So these are about type of arguments, and you can know more about functions. Excel has almost 450 built-in functions, and you can add more number of functions via third parties. You can all create your own using VBAs, and most users use just 10 to 15 functions at max. Those we will discuss in detail. And you can also click on functions, and you can use all these functions as well. You can see auto sum recently, financial, logical, text, date and time, math, more functions and all. You can use it. You can use the functions from here as well, or else you can also click on the insert function dialog box and also use the functions. Okay, that is about functions. Next, we'll discuss about entering formulas in worksheet. Okay, so in Excel, every formula must begin with a equal to sign. Okay, this tell exactly that Excel contains a formula and it's a not normal text. Okay, you can have two ways to enter a formula. Mostly it would be manually typing the formula, say average of 10 comma 20. Okay, so the average of two numbers is 10, 20 is 15. Okay, and second one is pointing to a cell reference, telling that equal to this into 2. You're referencing this particular cell. So in these two ways you can enter formulas in worksheet. Okay, and third one we will discuss about autocomplete in formulas. For suppose you have two numbers 10 and 20. When you wanted to use a function, when you're typing S, it will give you the list of functions that are available already, and once you type something, it will show the list of functions that are available. Okay, that means you can autocomplete. Okay, if right now you need sum, okay, you can go directly to sum and use tab, so that automatically this function appears and you can enter it. Okay, that is about autocomplete feature that Excel has. Okay, and as I told you, you can use the arrows, left down arrow, to just select that particular function, and you can use a tab to enter. Okay, and substitute. Okay, and you can use the arrows, and you can type on tab, it will give you the function, and you can use cell references to find the value. Okay, and second one, entering formulas by pointing. Okay, suppose you have two numbers 10 and 20. Okay, select this cell, and you can start the formula by using equal to, and then clicking on this cell plus this. That means you are pointing these two cells to get the result. Okay, so this method mostly it is useful because if you have two numbers, you're pointing in this way. Otherwise, you can use Control Shift and you can go into the right side, and you can use it for all the rows and all the columns which are there. Okay, the last one we'll discuss about paste. Next, we'll be discussing about inserting functions into formulas. Okay, so the first method is the fastest method. We'll use equal to and type any number, anything like P, R, O. Okay, so you'll be getting the list of functions. That is the fastest way. Second way, how you can go, you can go directly into formulas, and you can click on any of the function. Okay, if you want if NA or ifs or if error, you can use this logical, or you can use the sum, average, count, max, min, and recently used functions are here. You can use it. This is the second way of doing it. Third way, insert function dialog box. Okay, so for that, what you can use, you can just click on insert and insert any functions like how I showed you. Okay, second one is you just need to go to formulas tab and choose a category and select the function. Okay, so these are the three ways you can use functions into formulas. Okay, next we will discuss about editing formulas. Okay, editing formulas. Okay, so if you want to edit anything, suppose if you want to write equal to any function. Okay, you wrote proper. Okay, if you want to edit this formula, what you can do, you can double click on it and you can edit it, or else you can edit it from your formula bar. You can do it from here as well. Okay, these are the two methods you can edit formulas. Okay, next we will discuss using cell references in formulas. Okay, how to use cell reference in formula, using cell references in formulas. Okay, so you have two you have two cells 10 and 20, or else 10 and 20, Okay, you have 10 and 20. If you want to use cell reference, you can just use this. You can use you can use this as a cell reference and you can get the value. Okay, but here whenever you're doing, you are using the relative reference. That means you're using the value 10 which is there in K8 and you're adding the value in L8 which is 20. Okay, that means you are adding these two. Okay, that is called as a relative reference. When you copy a formula, the cell reference changes automatically. Here suppose I am using sum of these two and pressing enter, but whenever you have a list, right? Okay, whenever you have this list, what happens whenever you are copying the function? What happens if you see here, it is K9 to L9, it is K10 to L10. So these numbers are not locked. Okay, they are using the relative reference. The formula is here, it is using this relative to get the answer. But if you are using absolute reference, that means you are locking the K column with a dollar symbol and you are locking the row 9 in the similar way you are locking L column and you are locking this number, right? So you got the answer. But if you just paste these values, if you see all these values, you are getting only 45 because you have locked both these. Okay, you have locked both these with a dollar sign. That means it will not use a relative reference, it will only use absolute reference. Okay, that is the difference between relative and absolute, which is the most important question that asked in any interview. Okay, so there is next reference which is mixed reference. What does it mean? It will only lock if I'm only locking the columns K and L. Okay, and then press enter. If you see here, the values again changed. Okay, here I logged only K column and L, right? Here if you see the values, you are able to see 101, 152 because this was locked and the remaining was there. This is called as a mixed reference. That means you're only locking columns and not rows. That's why you're able to get it different. Okay, so we will see with an example. Okay, what is absolute reference and relative reference? Suppose you have a sales tax. Okay, suppose you have a sales tax. Okay, and that is like 10%. Okay, so you have some values 30,000, 40,000 and 50,000. Okay, suppose if I use this into this value and if I'm using this, if I'm copy pasting it, it is saying 0 because I am using K12 and it is using the relative reference as L9. Okay, 40,000 into 0 becomes 0. But what if I do, if I log this particular cell which is L7, L8. Okay, so what I do, I just log this. If I log this and if I press enter and if I do autofill, you will see 40,000, 10% sales tax is 4,000, 50,000, 10% is 5,000. That is the absolute reference that we are speaking about. It is helpful when you have a same tax values across or you have a profit margin anywhere. So this absolute reference will be helpful. Okay,